How you doing, guys? This is Eric from Wasteland.com. We've seen inflation in the news a lot more recently. I mean, I know people like Peter Schiff, myself, others, Gregor Manarino, and everything have been talking about it for a long time, but we're finally starting to see it kind of take into the, I don't want to say mainstream, but it's being a lot more talked about now. And you're even seeing the mainstream kind of like the Federal Reserve talking points kind of shift on that to where it's undeniable now. They went from saying it's not going to happen to saying it's going to be transitory to saying it's going to be beneficial to saying, now this kind of like, oh, it might be here a while. We need to do something about it. So that's really quick. I mean, we're talking about in the matter of a year, year and a half that this entire, Overton window has shifted that much already. And speaking of that much already, I just read an article, and this is, directly related, affects me as well, which I made a video about why I bought a house in Vegas during one of the crazy upswings in the real estate market. It has already proved to be extremely beneficial decision because it was just announced that year over year, so 1 year in the Las Vegas metro area, rents have increased by 22% year over year. That's behind of all the 50 big metro areas that they measured, that's behind only the Phoenix area, which I think was 23%. So barely behind them. It's basically tied with Phoenix for the biggest increase in rents year over year. 22, almost 23% increase in rents in 1 year. So when people talk about, the official government numbers that are adjusted with hedonics and all that nonsense and their curated basket of goods, rent and fuel prices and food are some of the things that basically take up the biggest amount of people's non-discretionary spending. You know what I mean? Like someone might spend a lot of money on other things, if they're going out buying clothes and stuff like that. But that, in the event of a crisis or financial difficulties, could be scaled back pretty easily without a massive impact on your quality of life. But you're stuck when it comes to rent, fuel, and food. And these are the things that we're seeing with these massive increases. Obviously, it was a big joke in July when the Biden administration said, "Oh, 16 cents more to have a barbecue than it was last year." First of all, even if that were true, which it almost usually is not for almost anyone, who cares? So your barbecue cost, $100.16 instead of $100, but your rent, meanwhile, has gone up $300 a month. So yeah, exactly. And your fuel prices are double what they were last year, or 50% more, something along those lines. So I mean, you don't have to be a mathematician or an economist to see how quickly double-digit increases in rent prices could every year could very, very quickly become, just devastatingly out of hand. In just 1 or 2 years, really. If you have a 20% increase, a 20% increase, all of a sudden your rent is, insanely more expensive than it was. And almost certainly wages are not keeping up with this in almost every field. So it does show that I made a very prescient decision to buy when I did and should have done it earlier. Obviously, it would have been amazing if I could have bought 10 years ago in this area, but already it's proven to be like they definitely dodged a bullet. If I had waited even, it's only been about 6 months since I purchased, and our lease would basically be up now. So I would almost certainly have to re-sign at 10, 20, potentially even that's an average. Keep in mind that 20% increase is an average, so it's very possible that with the properties that I would be looking at, detached single-family homes, I'm wagering based on what I have seen, doing some little research, looking at what's available, that the prices have gone up much, much more than 20%, or at least significantly more than 20%. The single family home that we were renting, which was a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, with a garage and everything, but not otherwise fancy by any means. We were renting it for about $1350, I think, and looking around now, if there's any even available, it looks like they're in the $1,900 to $2,000 range. So if we were forced to re-sign at those prices, that's almost a 40% increase. So I mean, I was like, whew. So not only is money that you're renting, I don't want to say it's wasted because you're getting the rent out of it, but now paying basically just slightly more than we were paying rent over the past couple of years. I'm actually owning the place, putting some equity towards it, obviously with each payment, and it's locked in. And like I mentioned in that previous video where I talked about why I bought at a house at what seemed like a crazy time, as I said, there's no way that in 10 years, my house payment won't seem like a joke in terms of how cheap it is compared to rents and other mortgages. I didn't think it would take 2 or 3 years. I thought it would take 5 or 10, but definitely scary for what this portends for the future. And you're actually seeing people start to realize it too. They had a side-by-side image going around on Twitter of two articles. The first, and they weren't very far apart, maybe a month or two apart. And the first one was this ridiculous article about the hidden benefits of inflation, higher wages, and it's just like, oh my God. And then the article next to it was, of course, saying inflation has made it that a $15 minimum wage just isn't enough anymore. And everyone's like, yeah, no shit. That's what we've been saying the entire time, is that picking an arbitrary number, like, why isn't $7 enough? You know what I mean? Or whatever it is, 7.25, whatever it was over the past couple years. $7.25 an hour would be incredibly massive, 50 years ago. Why isn't that enough now when it was, so why will $15 be enough? And obviously we're talking about months after they're saying like, yay, the wages are going up. They're already saying it's not enough. And it's not hard to see why when you have rents going up 20% in 1 year. What that's going to look like in 5 years if it even continues at 10% a year? Yeah, so if you even get 10% a year average, so it goes down to, I don't know, 5% or something, and then back up. You know what I mean? So we had 22% this past year in 1 year, one calendar year. But let's just say it averages 10% over the next 5 years. That $1,350 that I was paying in rent after 5 years would be $2,175, almost $2,200, and that says nothing about any other increases in any other cost of living, food, gas, anything else, everything we buy. So I mean, most people who are paying $1,350 in rent or anything in rent for that matter, but let's just say the $1,350 similar type house to what I was renting, I doubt they have an extra $800 just lying around to absorb an increase in rent alone over the next 5 years, and I seriously doubt that wages are going to keep up with that. So you need to get your money in things that are going to keep up with that. I think overall, obviously, gold and silver, I think cryptocurrencies, even stocks in general, I think have a better shot of it. I do think there's obviously potential for a massive market crash or correction at some point, but as long as the Fed keeps pumping out money, it's going to continue to push it higher. But just physical commodities, cryptocurrencies, maybe even foreign currencies in some cases. But just look around. You want stuff that is not denominated in dollars. And also, like what this shows, one of the main things that this shows is that you can't wait to get the things that you want. If I'd waited, even 6 months to buy the house, then I probably would be not only be priced out, but now I'd be looking at massively increased rent prices for when I was having to re-sign a lease. If I can even find a place. That goes for used vehicles, that goes for pretty much anything that you need and use on a day-to-day basis. So if you have any extra money lying around, I definitely suggest putting it into things that you're going to use first of all, and that are all most likely going to go up in cost over the next couple of years. So if you're going to use it first of all, then you're not out any money unless you were to see a price decrease, which is unlikely. But so even if prices don't go up a lot, like say you buy a bunch of toilet paper and it stays basically the same, you still haven't lost anything, and you've insulated yourself against supply chain disruptions as well by having extra of the stuff you need sitting around at your house. So food, toiletries, certainly any medicine. If you have anything that you actually need, that's the things that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about getting toys and things like that you don't really need. That money I would put into some sort of investment, gold, silver, crypto, something like that. Let me know what you guys think, if you've seen similar rises in prices and rents or anything else in your area, and what you think is going to happen over the next couple of years if you think this is going to continue. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later.